Greetings, everybody. Welcome today for a webinar. So today's speakers, first of all, we have Diana Pessin, who's VP of Digital Media and Acquisition with HBO, which obviously brings a lot of expertise to the OTT space. And Andy Fisher, Chief Analytics Officer with Merkle. And then we have Matt Nager, who's SVP and Client Partner with Merkle. I'm going to hand this over to Matt real quick, who's going to give us a little bit more color on HBO and Merkle and how they're playing in this market. Matt?
Great. Thanks, Scott, and thanks, everybody, for joining the webinar today. So after Andy and I have a chance to go through some content and some point of views on our opinions on the space, as well as some research that Scott's going to go through to start us off, we're going to wrap up today's session with a conversation with Diana, in particular kind of focusing in from the HBO perspective. For those of you unfamiliar with HBO, which I hope nobody on this webinar is unfamiliar, HBO is the premium television programming subsidiary to Time Warner Inc. It's also the world's largest and most successful paid TV service, providing two television services under both the HBO brand as well as the Cinemax brand to approximately 127 million subscribers worldwide. So a lot of people, a lot of information, and a lot of insight that Diana is going to be able to impart as we get to the closing stages of the webinar today.
And with BNC and Merkle, we worked on some research behind a white paper that was produced on tools for digital performance in the OTT age. And basically, a lot of the things we looked at were some of the trends that are going on in digital media and streaming TV. And obviously, everybody knows that the world has completely changed. So what we're looking at is, here's some data from eMarketer. By 2018, 191.4 million U.S. Internet users will be accessing the Internet via connected TV devices. And, of course, there are many other devices, but this just kind of shows how the OTT trend has gone mainstream. And it really is a different business model, and people need to, look at how to adapt to this model. So the next thing that we learned, or another stat on this market, is that OTT advertising is projected to represent half of all TV ad revenue by 2020, and this is some data from the Diffusion Group. And basically, this just, again, demonstrates the shift in the business models, how the industry is changing, and how this is forcing people to adapt to this disruptive force. Another trend, a big trend, a generational trend, is how viewing habits are changing. You can see the blue line here represents, who is watching via streaming video, and the green line represents traditional pay TV. And you can see the skew on the left, higher percentage of younger folks, 18 to 24 and 25 to 34. Unfortunately, I'm no longer in either of these age groups, but we can see that this is future generations. The majority of them are viewing content via streaming services and OTT. And the green line shows that the majority of the more advanced generations, as we put it, including mine, are viewing it via traditional pay TV. So this basically just tells you that the future is OTT. As these generations grow up, they've kind of adapted to different viewing habits. And of course, the next slide shows, as we know, that everybody is using different types of devices to do this, and increasingly watching shows on whatever access they have. Not only does this kind of broaden the way that people view the OTT content, but it's also forcing traditional hardware providers, such as people that provide game consoles and DVRs and Internet-connected Blu-ray players and Internet-connected TVs, to adapt and provide, a mechanism to tap into this rich OTT content, which people want. So the last slide, which kind of sums up, it's 6 things M&E marketers need to do now. This sums up some of the findings from the white paper and the research work that we did, that, people need new tools to reach out to this digital audience and engage with them. It's a more interactive process. The first is you need to get to know the customer. There's a rich set of data and resources behind this that you can find out a lot more about individual customers and what they're wanting and what they're accessing. You need to get direct access to the customer, whether that's, via a new app or a new OTT service or whatever tools you want to provide to tap into this direct one-to-one experience. You need to dive into the data, really have a deep and rich understanding of the analytics and what's going on behind the scenes, of how people are viewing content and passing it around and sharing it online. You need to pursue the long tail. What's happened is the linear TV model has exploded because the internet brought out the long tail, which means you can get very specific content on your specific interests. Pretty much, if you're a dog fanatic, you can find, dog fanatic TV on the internet. So the long tail has become really important in the OTT model. And for those of us who are involved in digital marketing digitally marketing the content, you need to optimize the campaigns by pulling data, using scoring systems to find out the most effective manners, and managing the engagement, and really looking for the success so that you can maximize the success. And lastly, all of the more successful digital marketers these days are leveraging social media, and not just using social media, but using all the data and the tools. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Matt, who's going to do a poll, correct, Matt, and find out what our audience thinks.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scott. And for everybody that's on the webinar, we will be providing a link at the end of the webinar to access the white paper that we had worked on together with Scott and his team. So you'll be able to dig deeper into all those content areas. As Scott had mentioned, we are going to be asking some poll questions throughout the course of the webinar today, just so we can get a little insight from you, and you can kind of see what your peers on the webinar are also doing in the space. For the first poll question, we really wanted to know, what percentage of your advertising do you think will be addressable in the next 5 years? And when we talk in this question, we're really looking at total advertising that you think will be addressable, both digital as well as offline and out of home. So obviously you see the question responses here of less than 10, 10 to 25, 25 to 50, or greater than 50. And it looks like the survey is out, so if you can go ahead and respond to that. As I said, we'll be asking these questions in different stages throughout the webinar today. As we move on then, once you've answered that question, we do have one more question to get some responses from. We really wanted to understand as well, we know that a lot of addressable advertising is happening in the digital space, but in general, as you look at video delivery, so commercials, television commercials, online video commercials, mobile video delivery, what percentage of that audience or at that spend do you believe is going to be addressable within the next 5 years inside of your advertising budget? And so if you could take the time and answer that as well.